lot of books that you've written has been on the terms of Bhagavad Gita. Can I request you to introduce Bhagavad Gita to someone who would have no idea what it is and maybe just explain in a manner that some people would understand?
You see, Bhagavad Gita is essentially an integral part of one of the greatest epics that we have in our country called Mahabharata. Mahabharata essentially was a kind of a battle fought in the grounds of what is called Kurukshetra, a place in the northern part of India. It all became as some kind of a war between the two wings of a family, the same clan, called the Kuru Vansha, the Kauravas and Pandavas. The Kauravas being headed by Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra, his father, and Pandavas by Yudhishthira and Arjuna and his brother. Now, essentially there was a fight between who's going to own what part of the land, what part of the property. And Duryodhana, who was representing the Kaurav clan, was very obstinate, very obdurate. He refuses to part even with an inch of land, which legitimately belonged to the Pandavas also. So it was essentially a fight between the Kauravas and Pandavas. And as I mentioned, an integral part of epic called Mahabharata was written by a sage Veda Vyas. So Bhagavad Gita forms a part of this particular epic, wherein Arjun, when he faces some of his relations, some of his friends and relatives and cousins and fathers and gurus and grandfathers, is extremely depressed, is very crestfallen. He says he refuses to fight against them. He says, I don't want to be responsible for their death. This is where Krishna comes in as his friend, who calls him his Sakha, his friend and guide, philosopher, etc. Now, he tells him that you need to perform your duty. You must fight against injustice. If something which legitimately belongs to you has been taken away from you, being snatched from you in an illegal manner, you need to fight against that. This is where the philosophy of Karam Yoga, that most of us associate Bhagavad Gita with, came into being. He says you need to pick up your bow and arrow, fight against injustice, get your legitimate due, and don't worry about the results. In fact, the iconic verse in Bhagavad Gita in second chapter really espouses the entire philosophy of Karma Yoga. Karmanneva adhikaraste ma phaleshu gadachana ma karm phal hetu bhurmate sangvastu karmani. Majority of Indians seem to be aware of this particular stroke, which only says that you have right on the duty and not on the reward. Keep on performing your duty and don't abandon your work if you don't get the reward. So this is the most profound message of Bhagavad Gita. Now, in the midst of that war, Krishna really took Arjuna on a long journey of trying to explain to him his responsibilities, his duties, his dharma. And in that process, he delivered one of the most profound messages which is relevant for the entire mankind. So Bhagavad Gita is not typically a scripture of sort. It's more of a way of life. He then starts dealing with all kinds of the cosmic energy, his own personal representation, his own power that the God wields, the universal consciousness, the energy, the devotion part of it, the karma part of it, the knowledge part of it. So the multiple processes of yoga which are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, ideally speaking, one if I can briefly mention Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. The different forms of yogas are spelled out beautifully in Bhagavad Gita. And that's the reason why it is hailed as one of the finest philosophical documents in the world. Just to quote one gentleman, Aldous Huxley, who was a British philosopher, a lot of people know about him. He says Bhagavad Gita is the finest philosophical document till date, which has relevance not only for Indians, but for the entire mankind.
Definitely. People believe it's a religious scripture, but purely a way of life, like that.
Yeah, you see, the kind of message it contains, it concerns everyone in day-to-day life. What am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing the right thing? Gives you a sense of discrimination, tells you and listen to your own voice of your own conscience. And also categorizes different action that we do In fact, one of the very important components of Bhagavad Gita is to categorize the attributes of every human being into three different categories, which are sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. He says every individual in this world, in terms of his thought, in terms of action, in terms of his energy, in terms of food that he eats, in terms of the karmas that he does, in terms of the gyan that he has, all are conditioned driven by these three different gunas. And the prevalence of one over the other establishes a reputation. He says nobody in this world is without bereft of these three gunas in some form than other. But some people are more sattvic than rajasic. Some are more tamasic than rajasic. But if you're predominantly, if you have a purity of heart, if you don't hurt anybody, if you speak the truth, if you have strong moral values, then you become sattvic.
Can you explain the viewers the gunas that you said in English?
Yes, the sattvic really represents a person who's spiritually grounded, who speaks the truth, who is morally very, very strong. He doesn't hurt anybody deliberately. He's nice and soft and affectionate with everyone. The rajasic really is more of a person who is very worldly minded. He leads a very active life. He wants the comforts and pleasures. He wants to earn money. He wants to have family. Deeply involved in the worldly affairs. Not that sattvic is not, but he has sense of detachment. Rajasic person is deeply involved, attached with everyone, his family, children, money, power, etc.
So is it purity and materialistic?
So yes, you're right, purity and materialism. And the tamasic is a person who would be really, the lowest rung of social human being. He doesn't mind telling a lie. He doesn't mind hurting anybody. He's very slovenly, very lazy, very not the kind of person who would be interested in doing anything at all. So the three categories, and you probably find people of this nature, different categories in every part of the world.
So are you trying to say that we need a proper balance between the three, or what is your take on it?
So this is again where I'm glad you asked this question, because this is also a very strong message Bhagavad Gita gives. They say, Yogastha kuru karam kani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddha siddha same bhutva samatvam yogi uchyate. Samatvam, samata, equilibrium, equanimity. See, suggest to take a middle path. Don't become too happy jumping away that you get something. Don't become depressed if you don't get. Sukh dukkhe samay kritva labha labho jayajo. This is where one of the important verses of Bhagavad Gita. Sukh dukkhe samay kritva labha labho jayajo. Treat happiness and misery, loss and victory, getting possession or not getting possession on equal footing.
Beautiful.
And if you stay rooted and grounded and become completely at the state of equanimity and equilibrium, you will never come to any harm. So that's so. And in answer to your question would another be very interesting one. He says, do everything in a very moderate manner, in moderation. We tend to go to extremes and then we get into trouble. He says, Yukta har viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapna bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. He says, eat in moderation, work in moderation, don't go overboard. I mean, you don't just sort of, often people tend to completely drown themselves into work and files and this, that and other, and they forget about the other responsibilities. He says, Yukta cheshtasya karmasu, even in your work, you should be moderate. Yukta swapna bodhasya, sleep moderate hours, 7 to 8 hours. Don't sleep for 12, 14, 13 hours like lazy bums. So that is one of the biggest advices, that live in moderation, follow middle path, and you will never come to any harm.